Seiko's list price for its Prospex Land is $550. I'll be referring to this watch as the Land. I bought the green dial Land in October for $302 on eBay from vendor The Watch Depot. When I bought it, the green dial variant was about $40 less than the black dial variant. Now the black dial variant is significantly cheaper than the green dial variant. At this time, the lowest price I can find for a Land of either color is $315. I found only one authorized dealer selling the Land, and this dealer was selling the Land for the same price as Seiko sells it directly. If you're going to pay full retail price for the Land, I recommend buying it directly from Seiko, as they give you an extra year of warranty period if you register a watch that you buy from them directly. Seiko is doing all it could to undercut its authorized dealers. I went into watch review retirement in 2019. Coming out of retirement in the middle of 2022 was like waking up to a new dystopian landscape of sleazy business practices that literally make me squirm. Seiko's business model for the Land is to compel consumers who demand an authorized dealer to overpay for the Land by buying the watch from them directly at their list price. If the consumer opts to not get royally taken advantage of by Seiko, he or she is free to buy a mystery meat Land from an unauthorized dealer and can go fuck himself or herself if anything is wrong or goes wrong with the watch. The Watch Depot, the eBay seller I bought the Land from, did, as advertised, include what appears to be a Seiko warranty card. However, according to my understanding of the terms of Seiko's limited warranty, the watch must be purchased from an authorized dealer in order to satisfy the terms of Seiko's warranty. The Watch Depot sure doesn't look like an authorized dealer to me. The Land uses a smaller version of the case design of the Seiko SRPH15 that I reviewed a few years ago, which the de facto watch authorities of YouTube have dubbed the King Turtle. My wrist is about 7 inches. The King was too big for my wrist. The Land, however, fits like a glove. It's hard for me to imagine a watch that is more perfectly shaped than the Land. It's become my favorite watch design. While the Land is not a dive watch, I consider it to be a retrofitted dive watch. The Land has 200 meters of water resistance like its dive watch turtle cousins. You don't have to worry about getting water in your Land. Seiko's sedate photograph of the green dial Land is not representative of what the Land's green dial actually looks like. So much light is reflected off the Land's sunburst dial that it creates the appearance of glare or haze, making the dial overly difficult to read, especially in low light. The detail and quality of the Land's handset and markers is the best of any watch that I've reviewed. It's a real shame that Seiko ruined what could have been a nearly perfect dial by trying to appeal to men who like to have a bicycle reflector strapped to their wrist. I really like the Seiko applied logo on the dial. While there's room to nitpick about the centering of the date within its cutout or the date's lack of a green background, I think Seiko did a decent job with the Land's date. This is my $120 steel dive Willard that's being queued up for a review. The Willard is a Chinese homage of a watch made by Seiko that has a similar design to the Land. The Willard has similar dimensions to the Land as well. The Willard and the Land both use entry-level Seiko movements that are nearly identical. The Land's crystal is sapphire. It will never scratch. However, unlike the King Turtle that I reviewed, which had a ceramic bezel insert, Seiko, in its ongoing fuckery, decided to slip what looks like an aluminum bezel insert into the Land as if we weren't going to either notice or care. Aluminum is a soft metal that scratches and dents very easily. Aluminum has no business in modern watches. Juxtapose the Land's aluminum bezel insert with the $120 steel dive Willard's ceramic bezel insert. While the Land's bezel insert will become increasingly scuffed over time, the steel dive's bezel insert will always look new. The land fits wrists up to 8 inches in size. At 12 millimeters in thickness, the land has a thin case for the type of movement it houses. The land has a diameter of 44 millimeters. This is, however, a pretty meaningless measurement for an oval-shaped watch like the land, and I urge you to ignore this figure. The important dimensions to consider when evaluating the land is the width and lug-to-lug. The land has a width of only 42 millimeters and a lug-to-lug of only 44 millimeters. These are pretty good specs. The land has a pretty modest size for a modern dive-like watch. It's similar in size and feel to that of the Seiko 5 Sports. The land's bezel is unidirectional and very smooth. I'm not sure how to use the land's compass bezel dial. If you watch prepper YouTubers, they love to explain how to use your watch dial as a compass by observing how the sun hits the dial. I'll leave it to other reviewers to explain how to use the land's bezel to navigate in a post-apocalyptic world. What I can tell you about the land's bezel is that it doesn't act like a magnetic compass and doesn't move on its own to tell you what direction you're going. Other reviewers will probably take exception to the lack of a logo on the land's crown. I'm quite satisfied with the look of the crown. To me, it looks more like an old-style TV knob than a crown, and this brings back sentimental memories for me of my youth in the 70s. The land's crown is not only extremely easy to access, but has superb action and excellent crown pop. I didn't peel the sticker off the back of my land, but you'll be able to see that there's a lot of weird stuff on the case back that is of no practical use to most people. The finish on the land's case, while adequate, isn't that much better than my Willard. The land's case integration with its bracelet is poor. Notice how my Willard has a much better fit than the land. With the price that Seiko is charging, the lands and links should not only fit as well as the Willard, but seamlessly blend into the case. The land's bracelet is 20 millimeters in width, tapering down to 18 millimeters and going back up to 20 millimeters at the clasp. These are decent dimensions. I like 20 millimeter bracelets. The bracelet has smooth edges and decent fluidity. While most Chinese Seiko knockoff watch brands have focused on improving their bracelet clasps, Seiko has focused on making their already trashy clasps even cheaper and more trashy. This, for example, is the clasp of my Willard, which over its evolution has become a fairly rugged clasp. By comparison, here's the clasp of the $200 or so Seiko 5 Sports that I reviewed a few years back. The Seiko 5 clasp looked like garbage, and it didn't surprise me that it snapped after 4 months of working at Domino's as a pizza delivery driver. The Seiko 5 clasp, however, doesn't come close to the level of crap of the land's clasp. It's as if Seiko has an R&D department devoted to the making of ever cheaper and crappier parts to grate the nerves of its customer base. They probably call it the Department of Crap. To add insult to injury, Seiko put only 3 micro-adjust positions in this crappy clasp. 3 micro-adjusts? Really? It should have had 4. It would have cost Seiko just a little more to include a sturdy clasp. I find Seiko's petty nickel and diming of its loyal customers extremely disturbing. It wasn't a surprise to me that the land's bracelet uses tubes and pins, as this has become pretty standard not only with Seiko but Citizen. The land uses the Seiko 723 bracelet with the help of a lot of prayer and an expensive industrial-strength watch vise, perhaps not so ironically made by Seiko. I was able to size my land without breaking anything. I did, however, feel like checking myself into Salam Psychiatric at several points during the process of sizing my land, and needed to calm my nerves afterwards with copious amounts of high-octane alcohol. I have instructional footage at the end of this video on how to size the land. Tube and pin proponents will argue that tube and pins are the most secure bracelet connection method. I consider this argument to be completely irrelevant, as why on earth would you combine an ultra sturdy bracelet with a junk clasp? It makes absolutely no sense. Unless you're prepared to size the land yourself, you'll probably have to pay an extra $25 for some clown who calls himself or herself a jeweler to break and or lose your tube and pins and then tell you he or she did a great job when you complain, like in my experience. Seiko refuses to employ screw pins in their bracelets, as this would make the lives of their customers too easy. Here's the land's lume after being charged by a flashlight. Here's the lume after an hour. The only indexes that are clearly visible are 12, 3, 6, and 9. At best, this is sloppy. At worst, Seiko is deliberately not applying adequate levels of lume to the watch in order to cut costs. I'm giving the land's lume a fail. If you gave me a choice between a free steel dive Willard or a free land, I'd pick the Willard any day of the week. You might object to my choice, arguing that the steel dive Willard is nothing more than a plagiaristic knockoff of a Seiko and doesn't carry the all-important Seiko name. You'd be absolutely right about the intellectual theft, but what exactly does the Seiko brand represent? The Seiko brand, to me, in the fourth quarter of 2022 represents nickel and diming of consumers with cheap parts and exceedingly sleazy business practices. While the land does have a lot of nice features, I don't consider it a good value either at the $315 gray market price or the $550 white market price. I had a camera malfunction while filming the sizing of the watch. I managed to patch together pieces of surviving footage to create a narrative. Here I'm using the Seiko S926 tool to push the pin and collar out. I'm pushing it out in the direction of the arrow on the link. Having pushed it in as far as it'll go, I am reversing. You won't be able to fully extricate the pin using the Seiko S926 tool, at least not the way I used it. The pin will remain sticking out like an ice cream cone like this. You won't be able to remove the pin with the tweezers either. At this point, I hammer both the pin and the tube out. I keep hammering until I can easily pull the pin out with the tweezers. The tube is still in there. It's hiding. The tube is very small. Don't lose it because it has a tendency to just want to fly all over the place. Just very gently drop it out or tap it out if it doesn't come out. Okay, the tube dropped out. It was hiding under my middle finger. That bastard hides everywhere. The actual footage of my putting the pin and the tube back into the link didn't get recorded properly, so I'm recreating it here. I'm putting the tube in the center of the link because it won't fit in the top of the link. I'm now conjoining this link with another link. I'm inserting the pin into the link on the side that doesn't have an arrow. Okay, the tube and pin are now in. All I have to do now is hammer them in. If for whatever reason they don't hammer in, don't force it. Just remove the tube and pin and try again.